Hello my fellow chatterers and book lovers and anyone else who has stumbled across this video because they've got lost, or anyone who's a bit curious about what it is. I can't even do my intro properly because I've just done a fail on my filming. So if you are confused as to what is going on, may I suggest you watch part 1 of my series about series video for the spring and summer term, which is here. I was moving books from my big pile of current series I'm reading, and one book was falling off and I panicked and I hit stop instead of pause. And I don't want to redo everything I've just done, so we now have 2 parts. That is the chaos that we embrace here. It's annoying, but we're going to go with it. So cheers everyone, round 2 of the one-shot no editing, all the joys. Clink, 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 clink. So yes, yay for not editing, but boo for having to deal with stupid camera mishaps like that, which was entirely me. I cannot blame the camera for cutting me off. That was my bad. Anyway, we're just gonna carry on. So just enjoy your interval and welcome back. Hi, let's crack on talking about the series that I finished between April 2024 and July 2024, which I call the spring/summer term. Okay, I've got a pile of books here. I'm going to pause. Amazing. We managed that without mishap. Hooray! So I'm very excited to finally tell you I have finished Arc of a Scythe by Neil Shusterman. It is a YA dystopia and was so brilliant. I think I started reading Scythe in 2022. In springish time, and then finally in my last video I had read Thunderhead. Was the last book that I'd read, and immediately, because I was having such a great time, I picked up the toll, so I finished the series and it didn't keep lingering on. It was so good. It was so good. I am definitely planning to reread this series again at some point, where I will be reading them without the big gap between Scythe and Thunderhead. However, I still understood what was going on. I still really enjoyed the world. I think my emotional connection with the characters would probably have been stronger if I hadn't had such a big gap between the books. But I really enjoyed Scythe. I thought it was great fun. I thought it was a really interesting concept. But I love how it expanded in Thunderhead and the Toll to kind of branch out the world, to be really exploring the themes of, you know, how do you cope with humanity when you have fixed dying, when people don't have to die. Illnesses, fatal accidents, they can be revived. Aging, you can reset your time. So how do you keep the earth going without being overrun by loads of humans? It was so fascinating to explore that concept. So I love where it was going with Thunderhead. Thunderhead is this like AI, sort of massive computer that's logical, that is making the choices for humanity. And in the Toll, we start to see how it all comes to a head. So where all the characters that we kind of left off in Thunderhead, where they progress next in the Toll, there is lots of different points and places that all the characters are in. There's a new character that I really love, and there's just more interesting concepts and things that kind of come about, and different ways of dealing with things. There's a lot of politics. There's a lot of politics and explorations of morality and sort of trying to do the right thing, wondering what the right thing is. And I just loved how this was explored. It was really thought-provoking, really fun. The plot was so engaging. Like, I just had to keep reading. I had to keep reading, and I was so excited finishing Thunderhead, going, oh my goodness, what on earth is going to be happening in the Toll, that I had to pick it up straight away, and I'm so pleased that I did. I've had the best time with this series. It was definitely one I love, I'm keeping, and will continue to reread. So next I am going to be talking about a duology. Can I remember the name of the duology? Nope, can't work out the name of the series, but it is This Vicious Grace and This Cursed Light by Emily Thende. Didn't realise that actually This Vicious Grace was Emily Thende's debut novel. Again, I loved this. I did not think I was going to enjoy This Vicious Grace. I got this in Fairy Loot book subscription box. I am not typically a fantasy romance reader. I tried it, it doesn't really work. I find like either, sometimes both, I'm not enjoying the fun times of the romance and the banter and rooting for the couple, or the fantasy just isn't giving me enough fantasy interest in the plot and the story. This did both, so I loved this. It's a really kind of unique world. It feels like you're on a Sicilian island. You've got gods having a dispute. You've got what do they call her? there is a name. What is her title? Diddly diddly dee. I'm gonna look that up. Okay, so our protagonist Alessa is a Finestra. So she basically has the power of being able to amplify a Fonte's magical gift. So she is to wed a Fonte, and then that is to help the kingdom, because there's going to be a big kind of like what's the word, like a rapture kind of almost. The one of the gods is going to like send his force against their island, and to survive they need to fight off the evil minions. And to do this best, the Finestra, the protector of the people, amplifies the gift. The problem our Finestra has, Alessa has killed 3 of her spouses. We meet her at the funeral of her 3rd, and everyone is like, this, once was a whoops, 2 was, okay, maybe she's just really powerful, 3rd time's a charm, 3 is, we are all very concerned. So she is treading a very fine line here. She's freaking out. They don't know how many days they've got left until the rapture hits. She doesn't have a Fonte. The Fontes are like, I don't want to marry you because you might kill me. And it's kind of hilarious at the same time. It's sort of like if you don't laugh, you're going to cry. So she's choosing laughter. And it's just the way it's done. I just find it really enjoyable. I really love the Fontes. I love the kind of the sort of found family-esque cute thing you get. But she is not popular with the people. There are not uprisings, but there are people who think she's evil and is not actually the Finestra. So she's concerned for her life. She hires a bodyguard. The bodyguard is someone called Dante, and they have a lot of things to say to each other, and I love it. I found this so fun. The stakes felt real. The couple, what was keeping them apart, felt real, and it was just delightful. Then it continues in This Cursed Light. There are different things that are in play as they realise they've survived something, but they now want to do more to kind of stop this kind of thing happening again. So they want to kind of investigate and make kind of political alliances, go and meet other people and do a bit of peacemaking, and it goes in an interesting direction. You meet more characters. There is more kind of a bit of prejudice, a bit of unsure, do we trust each other? In this second one we have our gang of people, which is awesome. The relationship has is teething. I'm not explaining well. Teething has growing pains. There's things that need to be sorted out within the relationship, but it's done in a way that I think is believable and healthy. You're still rooting for them as a couple. You want good things for them. It's very enjoyable. My one gripe was I wanted more of the secondary characters. And I think, again, it's because I come mainly from an epic fantasy. That is my love, my subgenre love. And so I like to find out about a whole host of characters rather than just focusing on the leads. So I kind of wanted a bit more from them. I would just have enjoyed a bit more like unpicking and stuff. And yeah, but I was here for the fun times. I was here for the fun times. There is some amongst the secondary characters, there is LGBTQ plus representation. They're just kind of delightful, and it's just a load of fun. If you're someone that likes like serious and gritty, this is probably not going to be that. But it is a well thought out like fantasy world, and there's lots of interesting powers, there's lots of interesting kind of like political dynamics, and I just had a brilliant time. And these copies are beautiful. This Vicious Grace is yellow, and it is surrounded by a border of lemons and lemon tree branches and mountains and some books. And this Cursed Light is blue and is surrounded by wheels and anchors and swords and rope and sort of a village in and sea. And they're just very pretty. And the sprayed edges, we've got lemons on this Vicious Grace and anchors on this Cursed Light. I'll read you the backs of them as well because I just think it's fun. So it says 3 weddings, 3 funerals, 1 more chance to save them all. Her gift can save or it can kill. That's this Vicious Grace. And this Cursed Light says, light, not life. Sacrifice their love or watch the world burn. What would you sacrifice for love? Lots of fun. And then I finally listened to the audiobook of Return of the King, the final Lord of the Rings book by J.R.R. Tolkien. And again, I cannot remember when I started listening to these. No, I've completely forgotten. I listened to the audiobooks of Fellowship of the Ring and The Two Towers quite close together, narrated by Andy Serkis, and loved his narration of them. And I wanted to continue, but I listened to these two. I think I'd got a free month on Audible and on Scribd, and I don't primarily use audiobooks. I tend to just use BorrowBox from the library, so I don't have a subscription because it just wouldn't be cost effective for me. But there was a deal on Audible, I think, again, and so I was like, right, now is the time. Go in, get the book, listen. So I did, and Andy Serkis's narration is just incredible. For those who don't know, Andy Serkis played the role of Gollum in the Lord of the Rings films. He is an incredibly talented voice actor, and he gives you the gruff Gandalf. He gives you the slow talking Ent Treebeard, to the point that I actually had to listen on like 4 times speed because I was like, I don't have time for you to give me this. The Hobbits, he gives you their different character voices, and Pippin sounds exactly like Billy Boyd, who played Pippin in the film. And it was just really delightful. But it's like how he can sing emotional dwarf songs and then silly Hobbit songs, and it was so much fun. I didn't listen to the appendices in this one because you know, I have lots of things I want to get on and do. If I read it, I'd probably read it, but as much as Andy Serkis's voice enthralls me, I don't need to listen to a whole list of the many years of elf kings and human kings that we have had. I have discovered with Tolkien, I don't need a history lesson of the lore. That's very nice that exists, but I don't need to know it. What I am interested in hearing about is hobbits talking about pipeweed. Give me the hobbits. Give me their fun bits. That makes me happy. Elf lineage, I'm not interested in. But this was such a fun time. I'm so pleased I listened to the Andy Serkis for my reread, and I will once again be physically rereading at some point in the future, but it's just delightful. Lord of the Rings classic, you get it. Okay, final one I finished was the Radiant Empire Duology. I borrowed this from the library. I don't have a copy, so I just had this as a place marker. I read She Who Became the Sun. I think it was 20... No, again, I can't remember. I can't remember when I read She Who Became the Sun, but for quite a while that was sitting on my series that I need to... series I'm up to date with. And then He Who Drowned the World came out, and I hadn't got around to it, but I finally did, again in April, so it's been a while. I read He Who Drowned the World, and I loved She Who Became the Sun. I loved the historical setting. Shelley Parker Chan just takes you to that place. I love Zhu, our protagonist. She's wonderful. I love her a lot. And the other characters are fascinating, and I can't remember any of their names, but another soft spot one I had for was the character who is kind of like a bureaucrat. He's the one that keeps the kingdom running by making sure that everyone has enough food so they are happy. War's not his thing. I really liked him as well. But it's really this fascinating story about you've kind of got these two different characters together. I'm doing a terrible job for explaining. But as well as having Zhu, who basically takes her brother's fate and dresses as a boy, becomes a monk, and from then on progresses to ending up in a rebel band of fighters and getting more and more involved in the political and war landscape of this world. You then have another faction, which is the one that is trying to stop the rebels. It's his lead soldier. He is a eunuch. He is very angry and bitter about life. And him and Zhu are sort of like rivals. There's some connection between them. You can feel there's a connection between them, but they are rivals in this. And what I really love is how they are very different to each other, but they have this kind of understanding. And then the second book just really goes into, like, we've opened up this big political kind of power vacuum. Who's going to try and gain power of this empire? And how people go about getting power. They're all very different. You have Zhu, who has become, everyone presumes she is a man, and she kind of has become this, she's very charismatic, and she's got a lot of following through the rebels. You then have kind of the more warlords that were in power. You've got other people kind of making political pushes through their own skill sets, but done in different ways. And it's very interesting to see how people's different choices they've made has shaped how they want it. And there's very much this feeling of, was it worth it? Was all the sacrifices you've made worth it? Are you still happy? Are you still you? There's also a wonderful look at gender and how that plays out, and how people think about the strength of women. Is a highly misogynistic world, and all of these things are just explored so beautifully. I have a video which is much better at explaining this duology. I'm going to link it here. It's about, have you been sleeping on this duology? It is like an epic historic with a small fantastical element. So I think people who went in expecting high fantasy were disappointed. It's very epic, but it's not high fantasy. It's got a very small amount of fantasy in there, but it's incredible. And I love how the themes are explored. I love the characters. I think the world building is amazing. All the detail in there, it really gives you a sense of place and where you are. I love this series. I really want to own my own copies, and I don't at the moment, but I definitely want to, because it's one that I would love to reread again. But yes, go and look at the video where I talk more about it, because it's been several months since I last I read it in April and we're now October, so things have left the brain quite a lot. Right, that was my 4 finished series, and what am I going to talk about now? I'm going to talk about all the series that I have started. So book series I started, technically started 7, but 2 of them, only the first book is out. So I'm going to talk about 5 because 2 of them are technically in the up-to-date section. So the first one is actually restarting, and that is Amari and the Knight Brothers. So if you saw on my up-to-date pile, I had Amari and the Great Game, waiting for Amari and the Despicable Wonders, but I wanted to reread the series to get to that point. So I decided I would just start it again. So I reread Amari in July and had an amazing time rediscovering why I love this series and reminding myself of how fantastic it is. So this is fantasy, middle grade. It's a bureau of supernatural and mythological, alien, all the kind of things that we don't see in this world, because the Bureau is kind of keeping tabs on them, making sure everyone's okay, the public aren't panicked, and they can kind of live among us very peacefully. And all of the people at the Bureau have a certain ability of theirs heightened by holding this crystal. Amari is put forth for this by her brother, who has mysteriously disappeared, no idea what's happened to him, and she really wants to find out, but she also has to deal with a lot of prejudice, and it's just fantastic. The characters, the magical whimsy, the plot, wonderful, love it. Where am I putting it? It's going over here. Another series I started again, it's a middle grade fantasy. It is Wilder Than Midnight by Kerry Burnell. The second book, Swifter Than Starlight, is out, but I'm saving that for closer to the more kind of springy, summery months now. So Wilder Than Midnight is a story of 3 girls. It is inspired by fairy tales. It's got a lot of kind of reimagining, linking of fairy tales, and they've all got very different characters. And I'd say the main protagonist is Wild Rose, and she has part of her arm missing, so she's got missing limb, and the author Kerry Burnell also has that, so its own voices. I really love the strength of these girls, how they face adversaries. I love all the fairy tale references in here. It's a really fun, cozy middle grade, and it's very sort of inspirational for people wanting to recognise themselves in stories, wanting to kind of dig deep and find that inner courage. I don't have the first book with me because I've lent it to Mum, but I started the Pages and Co series by Anna James. Again middle grade fantasy. So the first book is called Tilly and the Bookwanderers, and I don't have that one, but I really enjoyed that book. It's very cozy. It's like a love letter to book lovers. You can wander into the stories, and also characters can wander out of them and talk to you, and it's just full of gorgeous, joyous whimsy, but also looks at friendship and your own courage as well in that. And then I have sort of more adult ones now. I started the YA Duology, The Daughter of the Moon Goddess being the first book. This is by Sulin Tan. It's very lyrical. It is inspired by Chinese mythology, and was just a very beautiful high fantasy story of this kind of immortal world, and it's got some references to the human world, and it has references to a couple of the myths in there, which I then enjoyed looking up afterwards and finding out more about them. Actually, I think it was during. And you follow the protagonist as she learns about her parents' story, learns out more about them, that she's not supposed to exist, that she's hiding sort of from the emperor, and then starts trying to make her own way in the world. And it's just a lot of fun, a lot of just whimsical magic, and I really enjoyed it, and I'm very much looking forward to continuing. And then finally, epic adult fantasy. I started the David Bad trilogy by S.A. Chakraborty, the first book being The City of Brass. Absolutely loved this. Loads of history, lore, world building. It's a desert fantasy. We have djinn, we have different factions of djinn, we have political moments in here. We have kind of a mixture of hierarchy within this, how the djinn think of humans, and there's a lot of magic. There's a lot of like wonderful kind of world building in this, fascinating characters, and I just really enjoyed my time in here. Again, looking forward to continuing. So those are the 5 I've started, and now I'm going to be talking about the ones that I made some progress with. There have been 4 series that I've progressed with, and that includes 6 books, but I'm only going to talk to you about 5 of them, and you'll see why later on. So the first one is just a tiny little one. This is Onyeka and the Secret Superhero by Tola Okoguru. It is a middle grade fantasy science fiction, and this is sort of a extra book that we got from World Book Day that falls in between book 2 and 3. So this is book 2.5. So it comes after Onyeka and the Rise of the Rebels. This was just really fun being back in the world of Onyeka, and I am keen to keep going and find out what happens next. So with this story, you've got the same characters. It picks up where the other one left off, and the heroes have to save the day. So fun middle grade adventure. Next, I continued with the Pages & Co series. I read both Tilly and the Lost Fairy Tales and also Tilly and the Map of Stories. These are both enjoyable middle grades. Again, whimsy, fantasy, obviously fairy tales as you expect. They go into fairy tales. That was a lot of fun seeing all the different fairy tale characters. I enjoyed all the whimsy, I enjoyed all the fun. I felt it got really, there was a lot of wider plot, political possibilities, and it didn't quite go deep into that as much as I wanted to, but I'm aware I'm coming from this as someone who enjoys adult epic fantasy, and this wasn't the vibe of the middle grade. And with Map of Stories, I did enjoy where this one started going. It started getting more involved. It pardon me, it sort of widened out the magical world, and we went into some more books as well, and it wrapped up the plot points that were started in Tilly the Lost Fairy Tale. And finally, the final series that I will be discussing is one that probably was the biggest achievement for me for this term, and that was I read Oathbringer. So continuing with the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson, which is an adult epic fantasy, I wanted to reread Oathbringer so I could carry on with that series. I'd started off a couple of years ago rereading The Way of Kings in 2022, and then the summer I read Reds of Radiance, and I intended to keep going and read Oathbringer, and I just came to a big stop because it's so mahoosive. Other kind of books were calling my name. I was getting into readathons and being really competitive. It just wasn't its moment. It had its moment in May, and I had the best time rereading this. I really love this book. I love the characters. I love the world. It gives me all the feels. I really love all the themes that are being explored in this. So it was so nice to finally get back into the Stormlight Archive and continue with my journey, which then meant that I could read Dawn Shard, which is book 3.5. So it comes in between Oathbringer and Rhythm of War. And I hadn't read this one before, and it was so nice to just have this little novella where you just focus in on a few characters within this world. And I had a great time with this one as well. It was really nice to just spend more quality time with some of the side characters and some whose stories you followed, and kind of get to see a bit more about them. There is disability representation in here, which I really enjoyed. And then having read this, I could then finally get to Rhythm of War. So those are the books I've made progress with. and I'm now going to talk about the books I am now up to date with. And the second most exciting one for me from this series was I then read Rhythm of War, which is the fourth book in the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. And I have been wanting to get to this for years. For years. It came out in 2021, I think. It came out, I'm now checking. Was it published? No, 2020. Was it 2020? It says copyright 2020. This paperback version, I think, when did this come out? I think was it 2022? No, I thought that came out in 21. Anyway, regardless, it took me a really long time to get to this one. First of all, because I do my first read of the Stormlight Archive in paperback because I like to have them, carry them around with me because I just want to keep reading them, and I am happy for paperbacks to get bashed about a bit, but not my beautiful hardbacks. So I had to wait for the paperbacks. So I kind of collect this series in the paperbacks and then also get the US hardback. And then when I got it, I was like, well, I need to reread everything. And I'd come to Oathbringer as a massive stumbling block. And it finally, having read Oathbringer, I continued and got to Rhythm of War. And it gave me everything that I needed and stuff I didn't know I needed in this book. It follows the story. It's sort of a year on from Oathbringer, so the war has progressed. Characters have moved on a little bit in their skill sets and in their job roles, and you start to see them. The character arcs in this were just fantastic. They kind of went into different roles than what you expected. Certain kind of progress within their own mental health journeys and their wellness and well-being journeys happened in here, which was delightful. We got to see a kind of different side of the plot, and it went in ways I wasn't expecting, and it was just brilliant. So yeah, if you are interested at all in my more of my thoughts on the Stormlight series, I do have other videos where I talk more in depth. So I have all my thoughts on my reread of Oathbringer, which I will link here, and I speak about Rhythm of War in much more detail in my July wrap-up, but I absolutely cannot do it justice here. We would be here all day. Let's not do that. And the other two books that I have, so I've got 3 series I'm now up to date with from this term. Big one being the Stormlight Archive. Such an achievement to have finally got up to date for now with the Stormlight Archive. But there were 2 other series that I'm up to date with because I started them and there's only 1 book out. So these are the other 2 series I started. So the first is another middle grade fantasy, and this is Coco Akanabi and the Heart of Midnight by Maria Monteiro Adebisi. This is got a lot of African folklore inspiration behind it. You have got a character who has got a physical disability who goes from America to the country of his heritage, which is Nigeria, and is in this world, in this magical world of these gifted people that are sort of children of the gods, and or like descendants of them, like these different clans, and he is kind of taken into this world, and he has got this strange power with shadows, which makes other people, which is possibly like forbidden the more he finds out about it, and he ends up teaming up with 2 other people to go off on this mission to save the night, because they don't have night. There's no shade, it's constant sunlight, and the fun adventures and magic happens. It was a lot of fun along the way. I didn't quite get the emotional connection with the characters that I usually get from my middle grade, but I really enjoyed the world building. I really enjoyed all the folklore references, and I had a fun time with the plot, so I'm keen to keep going. And the other one is a YA fantasy, which is A Tempest of Tea by Hafsa Faisal. I really enjoyed this one. This was, again, really fun, but there was a lot of kind of emotional moments within this as well. there's characters that I feel like I've adopted and taken to my heart in here, and there's a lot of action that goes on in here, lots of things I wasn't expecting. There's a joy of tea, which is always nice. There's vampires, there's colonialism, there's a heist, there's a found family, there's a lot of fun going on in here, and I'm really keen for the next book. Really keen for the next book, so can't wait for that one to come out. Okay, I just have one book left to talk about, and this is a book that would have been in progress but ended up being a series that I am saying goodbye to, and that is Exile, which is the second book in the Keeper of the Lost Cities series by Shannon Messenger. I did not enjoy Exile. I had very strong feelings about some of the content in there, the way mental health was depicted. I have always had a problem with the adults in this series. I struggled with it in Keeper of the Lost Cities, but there was enough of mystery and intrigue within our protagonist Sophie and her background that I was keen to carry on reading. Didn't really go anywhere so much in this one, and I just got more and more infuriated by the grown-ups and the decisions that they make. It's crazy, it's ridiculous. Some of the reactions some of the other characters had was ridiculous. I can't root for people when they're being ridiculous. I can't get behind a society where the people in charge that are revered make stupid decisions and choices, and I'm just not impressed by the parenting. Not impressed by the way they treat people who are clearly struggling with trauma in these books, and I just got angry. I got really angry. I also got really angry about the way physical disability was depicted. So someone who had suffered burns, the way they were described made me feel really uncomfortable, and I have a lot of issue with it, and I will be doing a salty video where I tell you exactly how much I dislike this book and all of the problems. You're going to get all of my thoughts on all of the things within this book. This book is a beloved fantasy series. Lots of people love this series. Lots of people get lots of magic happiness. I was reading this with Talia from Pantana Book Mum, and she very much agreed with me about all the problematic stuff in it, but there was something about it that worked for her in terms of just magical escapism, so she could kind of like see past the problematic bits. I couldn't. I was just angry. I was just really angry and was hate reading. It's given me a lot of material to do nice and ranty, but I'm like, no, I am absolutely done. I did then Wikipedia the plot for the subsequent books, so I know what happens in terms of the character's background. I don't feel I've missed anything. It didn't really get any more interesting than kind of the first book. The intrigue was in the first book, and then it feels a little bit like like just less intriguing, and there's clearly more stupid decisions, just more ridiculousness, and it seems to be dragged out for overly long amount of time, and I've definitely made the right decision by going, nope, not for me. So yeah, I have taken this series is DNFing. It's so essentially finished for me. Goodbye. There we go. So in light of all this, I'm now going to go through the point system, and we're going to see how much points this has given me. And I will be using the lovely Heartstopper books to explain. Here we go. Imagine there's only 3 books in the series. That would be nice. So the way this works is, if I start a new series, for example, volume 1 of Heartstopper, that would earn me -6 points because I've added another book series onto my current read series. And I don't want to be doing that. I want to be getting rid of the series. I want to be reading through the series. So that would give me -6 points. However, if I continue to read that series, for example, picking up volume 2, that would give me 4 points. So I would have 4 points for continuing and progressing with the series. And every single book I would get 4 points for, apart from the final one, in this case, Hearts Up a 5, but I don't have it, then that would give me 6 points. So I get 6 points for finishing a series, 4 points for progressing, and -6 for starting. Now, if I, for example, let's choose a different one. How about one I've just read, A Tempest of Tea? If I start a series, and that's the only book out at the moment, but more are planned, I just get 0 points because I can't progress with that series. So I've added a series, but I'm also up to date with the series. So it doesn't add to my currently reading series. It will do later, but at the moment it doesn't. So it gets 0 points. And if I DNF a book, for example, not DNF a book, if I DNF a series, for example, Exile, it would just count as the progress. I get the progress points, but I don't get the finish points because I haven't finished the series. I've just chosen to stop. So Exile just gets progress points. If I DNF a book, I don't get any points because I've not finished the book. But I would possibly then chuck that series off my currently reading list. So that's the points. With that in mind, we're going to go through them. Okay. The toll was finishing a series, so therefore I have got 6 points for the toll. That gives me 6 points so far for the term, and that is incorrect. 44 points, just change that, 44 points for the year so far. I then started a new series, Tilly and the Bookwanderers, which earns me -6 points. I'm now on 0 for the term and 38 points for the year. He Who Drowned the World was finishing a duology, so therefore back on 6, back on 44 for the year. This Cursed Light finished off this duology by Emily Fende, which gives me another 6 points. So I've got 12 points for the term so far and 50 now for the year. Wilder Than Midnight, starting a series, so I'm minusing 6 points, back on 6 in total for the term and back on 44 for the year. This tiny little Onyeka book means that I've progressed with a series. So that gives me 4 more points. So I've got a total of 10 for the term and 48 for the year. May, I read Daughter of the Moon Goddess, which is starting a series, which means I've got -6 points, giving me a total of 4 for the term and 42 for the year. A Tempest of Tea is up to date with the series that I've just started, so that's 0 points, so affects nothing. Oathbringer, progressing with the series, gives me 4 points, which brings me to a total of 8 for the term and 46 for the year. In June, I read Koku, which again doesn't affect anything, starting but up to date with a series. But Dawn Shard means I'm progressing, so I get 4 points, giving me a total of 12 for the term and 50 for the year. Tilly and the Lost Fairy Tales, we are progressing, so that is 4 more points, bringing my total for the term up to 16 and for the year up to 54. Return of the King is finishing a series, so that's 6 points for me, bringing me 22 for the term and 60 for the year. But City of Brass is starting a series, so that takes away 6 points, so we're back on 16 for the term and 54 for the year. July, I read Rhythm of War, so that's a +4 points because I'm up to date, same as progressing, which gives me 20 for the term and 58 for the year. But Amari takes away 6 points, so I am down to 14 for the term and 52 for the year. But then we have Tilly and the Map of Fairy Tales, which is progressing, so I get +4. So I'm on 18 for the term and 56 for the year. And finally, I read Exile, which was progressing. So that is 4 points for me, bringing me to 22 points for the term. And my total for the year is to 60. So 22 points for this term, an improvement of 22 points from last term, which I got 0, and now the total score is 60. So that's definitely given me a boost that I am progressing with my series. That has made me very, very happy. But let's see if that translates to current series that I have on the go. So here are the series piles, and I am now going to, because I said Queen Bee is now out in the end of July, so that is the next book I need to read in Her Majesty's Royal Coven. So let's just pop this in like that. There we go. And looking at the series I've started, I now have, as I read Daughter of the Moon Goddess, I now have the next book in the Celestial Kingdom duology, which is Heart of the Sun Warrior. Starting City of Brass, the next book I need in the David trilogy is The Kingdom of Copper. In the Pages & Co series, the next book I need to read is The Book Smugglers. I restarted Amari, so the next one is Amari and the Great Game, which I am adding into the current series now because I've started reading it again. The next book in Wilder Than Midnight is Softer Than Starlight, but I don't have that one yet, so I'm just popping Wilder Than Midnight in there. The next Onyeka book is Under My Bed. I haven't earned it, so I'm just going to pop The Secret of the Superhero on there, which was the last one I read. So that brings us to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So I have cut down by 2 books. So that's an improvement. So we will take that. So looking at the next term, World Without End is still waiting for the right time and place because it's big. City of Nightmares, I'm probably not going to own the next book. I'm probably going to borrow it from the library. Same with Danger at Dead Man's Pass. Not currently feeling in the mood for either of those at the moment. Also, it's the library and I really want to kind of like read the books I currently have. So probably going to hold off on those for a little bit. Library of the Dead, I'm going to feel is going to be more autumnal next year. I think I want to, I own the next book. That's under my bed for me to earn. But then there are 2 more books out. So I think I'm probably going to be looking at that next year. Undertakers, I'm still very excited about. I said I was excited about it last time. I feel it's going to be its time very, very soon. So I'm still very excited about it. The Swifts and Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, I'm actually going to take off my pile. Very different reasons. So with the Swifts that I'm now taking off, I borrowed it from the library. I enjoyed it. I thought I'd probably pick up the next one, but there's just so many other middle grades that I'm really more excited to read. So I'm just going to let that one. Go. The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. The reason I'm taking this one off the series is purely because when I'm ready to read it, I'm going to be reading it 1 book a month. And being as I love The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, I'm going to reread that one. So there's no point me just keeping it on when it's not its time at the moment and I'm going to reread this one. Other books in here, I'm not planning on rereading Pillars of the Earth, nor am I planning on rereading City of Nightmares. So they're just going to stay on there. And I think I'm not going to reread The Library of the Dead because I can remember it pretty well. Whereas I just want to have a wonderful time in Becky Chambers' universe. So I'm going to take it off and it will go on when I'm ready to reread the whole series again. Amari, definitely going to be keeping going because the next book I have already. Ta-da! So it's going to be reading The Great Game and then reading the next book, which is Amari and the Despicable Wonders. Wilder Than Midnight, I've already said I plan to read sort of a bit later on. Onyeka, I definitely want to be reading soon. I just need to earn it. I'm going to be keeping on going with the Pages & Co series, keeping on going with both David and Celestial Kingdoms, I can't wait to read Queen Bee. I need to pick up Foundry Side and actually start reading it. As Against You, which is the next book in the Beartown series by Frederick Backman, we're coming into winter, so that's going to be its time. Maya Angelou, I really want to own her whole autobiographical series. And I just haven't got around to treating myself to those books yet. It will happen at some point, so pretty much paused at the moment, but still there. Evelyn Jones, same. I want to own those books, and I haven't bought them yet, so coming back to that one. Only a Monster. Last time I said I wasn't sure whether or not I was going to be in the mood for that one. I am now really in the mood for that one. I'm very keen to pick up the next book, which is Never a Hero, because I haven't been reading quite as much YA fantasy, so I'm very in the mood to kind of be picking that up soon, but it's going to be borrowed from the library, so maybe not just yet. And again, Secrets of the Stars, I said it last time. Why haven't I read this middle grade yet? I don't know why I haven't read it yet. I definitely want to. It just hasn't happened. But I want it to happen. I'm not sure when. I'm hoping soon, but we'll see. And A Court of Wings and Ruin and A Conjuring of Light in the Akatar and the Darker Shades of Magic series are part of a Tatty's Challenge project, which I will be talking about very soon. I've been saying this for ages, but it's going to be its time. So actually, my current series